Tonight's bedtime story is The Clumsy Dinosaur by Jane Thomas. Tonight's story is about a girl named Cece and her neighbour Spike. The unusual thing about Spike is that he's a dinosaur, half Snoozasaurus and half Snorasaurus to be precise. He moved in not so long ago, and Cece thinks he's the best neighbour ever, even if he does snore so loudly that she has to bury herself in soft mountains of blankets and pillows every night just to get her 40 winks. Ever since he came to live next door to Cece, the duo have been firm friends. I'd go so far as to say they're best friends. There's something a little magical about having an absolute best friend. Cece and Spike have things like their special goodbye, where they give each other a high five, a low five, and a behind five that ends with a wiggle and a jiggle. They know the minute they see each other whether it's the sort of day to go to the skatepark and rush and whoosh around the course, seeing if they dare leap into the air, or whether it's the sort of day to sit on a park bench and share an ice cream while just being there for each other. Today, Cece has woken up very much in a go-to-the-skate-park kind of mood. The sun is shining, the sky is blue, and she swears the birds on the branch by her window sound as if they're singing the tune of a Swiftie song, just as she bounces down the stairs, jumping with 2 feet onto each and every step. She hears Spike next door doing the exact same thing. And just as her mother comes to the bottom of the stairs and says, "Try and be quiet, Cece," she hears Patricia, that's Spike's mother, telling him the same thing too. But nothing is going to break Cece's good mood today. While she's waiting for the toast to pop, she dances round the room. And when she spreads the jam, thick, full of whole strawberries that she squashes with glee onto the toast, she sweeps the knife back and forth to the rhythms of a song she's humming to herself. "Toast," she sings to herself, "toast for me, covered in lovely strawberry." Her mother smiles as she passes her a glass filled to the brim with watermelon juice. Cece grins and sings another little song. "I shall have some juice to drink, juice that's thick and sweet and pink." She takes a huge gulp, then wipes her hand across the back of her mouth, cleaning away the pink moustache that appeared. "Is it all right if Spike and I go to the skate park?" she asks, hopping from foot to foot. "Don't forget Spike's cousin is here for a visit. He'll have to go with you," says her mother. Cece stops for a moment. She'd quite forgotten the cousin. "I believe," her mother went on, "he's an Acrosaurus. Yes, I'm sure that's what Patricia said." Cece had no idea what an Acrosaurus might be, but if he was a cousin of Spike's, then he must be a generally excellent dinosaur. She danced her way down the hall, danced her way into her shoes, and danced her way down the garden path, along the road, and down the path that led to Spike's front door. She was just reaching for the knocker when the door was flung open, and there was Spike, skateboard under his arm, ready to go. They gave each other a double fist bump and wiggled their shoulders, their special way of saying hello. And then Spike stepped aside and introduced his cousin Dizzy. He'd been born in the heart of the Great Smoky Mountains in the USA, land of hills and valleys and mysterious mists that swirled and whirled above the trees and swept their way along with the rivers and streams. Dizzy was a delicate greyish-silver colour, with a ridge of orange spines that grew from his back, almost as if they were a mountain range. And his long tail slipped along the hall as if it were a rippling silver stream. Cece reached past Spike and shook Dizzy's hand, asking him if he liked skateboarding. "Oh, he's never tried," interrupted Spike before Dizzy had a chance to speak. Dizzy shrugged and smiled. "But it sounds fun," he said. "I'd love to try." Spike was already out the door and heading up the road, calling over his shoulder for the others to catch up. Dizzy dashed outside, his long tail catching on the table that stood in the hall and sending it and everything on it flying. A pile of papers flew up into the air, landing in a completely different order all over the floor. Pens shot off in all directions. A lamp seemed to hover in midair for a moment before crashing down onto the carpet. And Patricia came racing out of the kitchen, tea towel still in her hands. "Oh gosh, I'm sorry," said Dizzy, desperately scrabbling to pick things up. As he turned to help, his tail brushed against the pictures hanging on the wall, making them lurch and swing at alarming angles, as if they were trying to dance themselves away from their hooks. "Whoops, sorry," said Dizzy, reaching for the pictures and holding them in place, his long tail clipping a coat stand and sending that with a wallop and a thump onto the floor too. He looked around desperately, trying to decide what to pick up first. But Patricia answered that for him by smiling and shooing him outside. Looking over her shoulder before she closed the front door behind her, Cece saw that there was a general trail of chaos inside the house. As Dizzy knocked over a plant pot in his rush to catch up with Spike, she had a strong suspicion she knew exactly who had caused all that mess. The walk to the skate park was just as chaotic as Cece had a feeling it might be. If there was something to trip over, a curbstone, a street sign, a litter bin, then Dizzy would trip over it. He knocked over the giant ice cream cone that stood outside the newsagent's, and Spike just caught it in time before it hit the ground. Poor Dizzy spent the whole walk apologising both to Cece and to Spike, and to random lampposts and pillar boxes he walked into. It was Spike's skateboard, so he had the first go swooping around the course, racing up and down the curves and ending with a quick spin of the skateboard. Cece high-fived him and went to have her turn, not daring to go quite as fast as Spike, but still putting in an impressive performance. Dizzy watched them both carefully, seeing exactly what they did, how they bent their knees in one place, how they pushed the board with a foot to gather speed, how they leaned back when they wanted to slow down. And he did his very best to copy just what they'd done. Somehow, he managed to fall off before he'd even put both feet on the board. Then, when he was halfway to standing up, he tripped over the board and fell again. Finally, he was on the board at the top of a slope, and it took off towards the bottom with him shrieking, a sort of combination of delight and horror that ended with him colliding with a tree. Dizzy was so rattled by the whole thing, he even apologised to the tree. They spent a lovely few hours racing around the course, Dizzy no better at the end than when he'd started, but still with a smile on his face. And then Cece pulled out her purse and counted the coins her mother had given her, announcing that they had more than enough to go to the little café in the corner of the park. The three of them set off, Spike steering them along the route with the least obstacles for Dizzy. He made sure they didn't go anywhere near the pond, but that did mean they needed to go close to the freshly planted flower beds. And, of course, Dizzy saw a squirrel and got distracted and tripped over a bench and, well, the three of them had to sort of guess where the flowers might have been as they rushed to put them back in the ground in some kind of order. To cross the river, they had the choice of the little wooden swinging bridge, the one that Cece liked to try and cross as Spike stood there shaking it, making it rush from side to side and up and down as she tried not to trip. Or they could go over the stepping stones, hopping from one to the next and hoping they never missed and fell in the stream. On the whole, it seemed safer to go with the stepping stones, and it should come as no surprise to learn that by the time they arrived at the café, the three of them were dripping wet. Dizzy had stumbled and tripped and grabbed at Cece and Spike so many times that they'd all ended up in the river at one point or another. Cece squeezed the water from her t-shirt as well as she could, and was very glad she chose to wear dark shorts that day, so you couldn't really tell, well, not from a distance at least, that they were soaking wet. Of course, poor Dizzy knocked over half the tables and chairs on his way to the counter to look at the cakes, and when he turned to pick up one chair, his long tail got in the way and somehow knocked over another. "He's wonderful," whispered Spike to Cece, "but I have never known such a clumsy dinosaur." Cece giggled. "His spikes get redder and redder the more embarrassed he gets. I don't think anyone minds, really. It's just funny to watch." They finally settled on the idea of taking their cakes and drinks across to a huge open area of grass and sitting on the ground. It seemed safer than staying in the café. Cece lay back with a sigh, her head resting on Dizzy's chest and her feet on Spike's. She tore little pieces from her banana muffin and tossed them into the air, catching them in her mouth. This was something she'd mastered, and Dizzy watched on, impressed by the skill. He eyed up his chocolate chip muffin and considered trying the same thing, but, on reflection, decided it was best to eat it as he normally did. That was quite messy enough, after all, without adding in the art of throwing. The three of them lay back and looked up at the sky, watching perfect little puffs of white clouds drift by and seeing how birds floated high, high on the thermals. A red and gold butterfly landed right on the end of Spike's nose, and he lay perfectly still, crossing his eyes to see it properly, all of them entranced as the butterfly opened and closed its wings, opened and closed, opened and closed, before slowly taking off and fluttering over to the flowerbeds. "Dizzy?" asked Cece after a while. "Do you mind if I ask you something?" Dizzy, his arms behind his head, quite content in the safety of staying perfectly still, said that of course he didn't mind. "Is it quite tiring being so very clumsy?" asked Cece. "Very," said Dizzy. "I try so hard not to, but it sometimes seems the harder I try, the more things I knock over." "Remember that time you knocked over the tent at Aunt Philly's wedding?" said Spike with a bit of a giggle. Dizzy groaned. "I'll never forget it," he said. "That's where I learned my trick, though." Cece sat up. "Trick?" Spike removed Cece's feet from his stomach and sat up too. "Yeah, what trick?" "I learned what to do when I don't want to be clumsy at all," said Dizzy simply. Spike spread his arms and pointed at the huge field they were sitting right in the middle of. "You've been pretty safe out here," he said with a laugh. "Oh, I can do better than a field," said Dizzy. "Find me a long length of rope and I'll show you." Cece and Spike exchanged a look. They were curious now. And so the three of them headed back towards home, with Cece rushing into the garage as soon as they returned. She knew that somewhere in there her father had a huge length of rope, all coiled up and neatly tied, and she hoped it was long enough for whatever trick it was that Dizzy could show them. She laughed at herself as she knocked over a pot of paint in her rush to find the rope. Perhaps Dizzy's clumsiness was rubbing off on her, she thought, as she cleaned the mess up with a pile of old newspapers. Cece took the rope outside to show Dizzy, and he put his head on one side and looked at the rope, seeing if he could work out how long and how strong it was. In the end, he gave a nod. "Right, now we need a couple of trees," he said. And both Cece and Spike looked towards the back of their houses, where two huge trees reached high up into the sky. "Will those do?" asked Spike. And again, Dizzy put his head on one side and seemed to be judging something about the trees. He gave another nod. Yes, the trees would do. "The rope," explained Dizzy, "needed to be tied between the trees, and it needed to be as tight and as straight as they could make it. This meant that Cece had to go into her back garden and climb up the tree a little, wrapping the rope around the trunk and tying the knot as tight could be, and then throwing the rest of the rope over the garden fence into Spike's garden. Spike then climbed up his giant tree and did the same thing, making sure the rope was pulled tight and straight and absolutely level. Dizzy looked up at the rope, then reached his arms above his head and held on, slowly allowing his whole weight to hang from the rope that stretched between the two trees. It seemed to be firm, so he pulled himself up, swinging himself around quickly and dancing onto his 2 feet. With his arms held out to his sides and his eyes closed, Dizzy walked along the tightrope they had created. He walked as easily as you or I might walk along a sidewalk. There was no pausing, no hanging around, no moment when he wobbled. For the first time that day, Dizzy was calm. He walked to and fro between the two trees, first towards the one in Cece's garden, and then back towards the one in Spike's. And then he repeated this, still with his eyes closed and seeming somehow to know when he reached the end of the rope and turning in perfect time. Eventually, he came to a stop above Spike's garden, opened his eyes and grinned, then hopped down from the rope. Cece pulled a chair over to the fence and stood on it, looking over into her best friend's garden where she saw Spike high-fiving Dizzy. "Bravo!" she cheered. "Amazing! But how'd you do it?" Dizzy reached up and lifted Cece over the fence, setting her down on the ground and sitting beside her. Spike joined them, so the three of them made a sort of triangular kind of circle, there at the end of the garden. Dizzy told the other two to copy what he was doing, and he held his arms out by his sides and closed his eyes, breathing in slowly and deeply for 1, 2, 3, 4, and then breathing out slowly and fully for 1, 2, 3, 4. He repeated this, and the others joined in, taking long, slow breaths that they held for a moment before releasing them back into the world. As I breathe in, Dizzy explained, I move my left leg forwards on the rope. I imagine that I'm floating high, high above the world. I'm there with the birds in the day and the stars in the night. I can look down and see the valleys far, far below. The valleys where I was born, where the mist swirls and whirls and sweeps its way along with the rivers and the streams. And then, as I breathe out, I put my right leg forwards on the rope, and there I am, far above the trees, far above the highest buildings, away from the noise of the traffic and the busyness of everything. I am perfectly calm and perfectly still. And there is nothing for me to bump into up there, as long as I keep breathing slowly in and breathing slowly out. He stopped speaking and smiled to himself, opening his eyes and looking at the faces of Spike and Cece, both completely calm and with soft smiles resting in place. Slowly, they too opened their eyes and grinned across at Dizzy. It's how I fall asleep, too, said Dizzy. Even when I need to listen to this Snoozasaurus snoring and rumbling his way through the night. He nudged Spike in the ribs as he said this. He leaned over and whispered loudly into Cece's ear, making sure Spike could hear what he said. Try it, he said. Imagine you're walking on a tightrope far above the world, and I promise you'll soon fall asleep too, even with the noise coming from Spike's room. That evening, Cece explained to her mother what Dizzy had taught her, and she smiled and said yes, that was what an Acrosaurus did. And Cece suddenly realized that the start of Acrosaurus sounded a bit like the start of acrobat, and her mother nodded and smiled and said yes, it meant heights. And Cece decided to see if she had a little bit of Acrosaurus somewhere inside of her as she rested her head on her pillow and curled up to fall asleep. As she closed her eyes, she took a deep breath in and imagined moving her left leg forwards on a tightrope far, far above everything else. The sun was just setting and cast a soft golden glow over everything. So, as she looked down, she saw golden birds returning to golden nests in golden trees. A stream ran along as if it was melted gold and poured its way into a golden pool, ripples spreading out in ever-growing circles as a golden frog hopped from a golden stone into the waters. And then she was slowly, so slowly, letting her breath out. And as she did, she imagined moving her right foot forwards and looking across at the first silver sparkles of stars in the sky. So close, it almost seemed as if she could touch them. An owl flew silently past, great wings sweeping gently up and down, up and down. The breeze rushing against her face as he slowly drifted from one side of the world to the other. A deep breath in, her left leg forwards, and a golden dragonfly landed on the very tips of her golden fingers, its wings a shimmer of silver and gold in the fading light of the day. Slowly releasing the breath, she looked down towards a golden sea, gentle waves rising and falling, a golden beach lined with golden palms that swayed back and forth, back and forth. And Cece never noticed the snores of the dinosaur next door, because the mist-grey dinosaur with the tail that stretched as if it was a stream of silver had shared his secret with her. She, too, could walk across the valleys of the Great Smoky Mountains. She, too, could stride above the deserts with their shifting sands. She, too, could look down on temples and rivers, mountains and forests, and balance on a thread as slender as silk that reached from one side of the world to the other. Now we're floating into a deep and peaceful sleep. Feel how your muscles are relaxing. Your arms are heavy and your legs are too, as they loosen and release any tension remaining from the day. Feel how you let your body fall into the cozy warmth of your bed. Close your eyes. Let your eyelids be heavy. Breathe deeply. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out as you continue to breathe deeply, and as you keep feeling how your body becomes soft and heavy with sleep. Let your mind drift away. That is the wonderful secret about sleep. While your body rests, lying heavily in your bed, your mind is set free, like a bird taking flight from a branch and flying up and up and up into the air. Feel how your mind loosens now, like a balloon that has been untied from a fence, and floats up and up and up like a bird. Up and up and up it floats towards the sky, until it reaches up into the clouds. Imagine that you have risen up high above the world and your head has poked up through the clouds. Then spread out all around you in the silvery moonlight, white fluffy clouds that look like cotton wool or marshmallows. They look so soft and squishy you can lie back on them and roll around in them. Try it now. Lie back in the soft cradle of the clouds. Feel how they swirl and wrap around your body, holding you gently in the world of sleep. Clouds come in all shapes and sizes. Some are big and fluffy, some are slender wisps. Some look like puffy mushrooms, and others look like paintbrush strokes that have been left on the dark sky. Let your body relax. Let your mind relax too. Let your mind float off into sleep. You are peaceful. You are safe. You are being held in the cozy warmth of sleep. With your eyes closed, let your mind drift up, up, up and away. In the world of dreams, you can go anywhere you like. You can float on blue oceans with ripples and tufts of waves. Or you can visit castles built in the sky with spiralling turrets and drawbridges over sparkling moats. Or you can wander into the peaceful woods where the birds are twittering and the trees are dense with dark green leaves. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out again as you fall more deeply into your cozy sleep. And with your eyes still closed, take a look around with your mind at where your dreams have taken you. When I fall asleep, I dream that I've gone to a world high up in the clouds. Sometimes the clouds are dappled silver from the moonlight. Sometimes they're soft pink and gold, reflecting the light of the twinkling stars. What form do your dreams take? Where does your mind go when you fall asleep? Maybe in your dreams there are flocks of white fluffy sheep huddling together on the green fields. Look at the mother ewe yawn widely before she tucks her little lambs beneath her woolly fleece. Or maybe you dream of a friendly dragon, curled up with his tail wrapped around him, a little trail of clouds puffing out of his nostrils. Look, the cloud dragon is smiling at us and waving. What a friendly dragon he is. Or maybe you dream of cute puppies lying on their backs, their tongues lolling out of their mouths, their eyes closing because they've had such a long day. They look tired, and there's their papa dog, fluffy and white, padding softly over to wish the puppies good night. Up here on the sea of clouds, you can be free. Feel how light you are, weightless, floating, drifting through sleep. Feel everything heavy from the day lift off you and drift away, taken away by currents until they disappear over the bank of clouds. Any worries you have been having, watch them float away. Anything that has been weighing on your mind during the daytime, now you can let them go and watch them drift away. Your worries are not you. You are not your worries. You can let them go. Watch them float away. Now you are light as air. You are as gentle as starlight. You are as soft as the clouds. Up in the sleepy sky, everything is weightless and peaceful. The clouds stretch out like a sea of tranquility. Close your eyes and feel the clouds wrap around you. Feel them bearing your body gently into the land of sleep. Feel your eyes close. Feel them rest heavily as your body relaxes into sleep. Feel your mind lighten. Feel it loosen and drift away, light as a feather, soft as the clouds. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. The world of clouds is waiting for you. Let yourself fall into the clouds' soft, warm hug. They are here to protect you. They are here to cushion you. They are here to hold you as you enjoy your deep and peaceful sleep. Sleep well, little one. Sleep well in the land of clouds. Feel how light you are. Feel how weightless, floating, drifting through sleep. Light as air, gentle as starlight, soft as clouds. Good night, little one. Sleep tight.